It's really difficult being a movie reviewer and then trying to talk about this type of film that's so personal that we are never able to see, but I'm happy to say that this is a movie worth checking out. Tigertail is about a Taiwanese-American father's attempt at connecting with his daughter, whom he has always had trouble displaying his feelings. But the bulk of the story is actually about his life in Taiwan. And we see what he had to go through to get to this point, and we come to understand why he's so distant and he's unable to express his feelings. This film is very personal to me because my parents are from Taiwan. They don't have an experience exactly like this, but there are definitely certain experiences that ring very, very true to me, especially the inability to communicate with our fathers sometimes just because our backgrounds are so different. And I'm sure a lot of immigrants will be able to relate with that feeling. Because there's so few Asian American movies, I think each one of them is doing something new, even if they're not the best movies you've ever seen. With this film, I'm happy to say that there are parts I really loved. I think it's really worth a watch, but there is some uneven storytelling. So I actually have gone back to Taiwan a lot. Ever since I was a kid, I've had the luxury of going back at least once every 2 years and seeing my family and talking with my grandparents. So I have a really good feel of what that place is, especially spending full summers there. The characters in this film mostly speak Taiwanese, which I don't know any of it, but I know what authentic Taiwanese sounds like, just having heard it. And the scenes where we're in Taiwan are beautiful. They are touching, they're funny. I thought the actors in that world were just really, really on point. The dialogue throughout this whole movie is pretty simple and straightforward, but the actors who are speaking Taiwanese really, really convey the feeling of the time. Well, I don't know if that's actually how it was just because I wasn't there, but it just gives this feeling of timelessness, and it's the costume design, the way they talk, the sense of humor. It rings true to me. I love those scenes. Where we have a little bit of issues is once we go back to the present, and the father character played by Tzi Ma, he can't really communicate with his daughter. I feel like there's too much repetition in that idea. We already understand that he can't communicate to his daughter, and every time we see him, he just doesn't really say much. I think we need to know more about the daughter character to really care more, and maybe it's because the scenes in Taiwan were so much more compelling that in comparison, we're watching this father-daughter relationship that's very stale. I think the message of this film is really strong, and all the information it presents is something we need to see because we don't really see any Asian American films, let alone telling a story that's talking about us trying to relate more to our immigrant parents. And even if you're not an immigrant, it's something we can all relate to. Your parents, whether well off or not well off, they just grew up in different times, and there's bound to be a lot of different friction. The specific friction between the father and the daughter in this story, it's one of pragmatism. It's one of love and showing affection. American culture really does prop up this idea that you show love by telling people you love them, by hugs, by smiles, by laughing together. In a lot of Asian cultures, in Taiwanese culture, you show love by taking care of your loved one's needs. And that's the extent of it. If you can feed somebody, if you can clothe somebody, what else do you need? And we see that for this father character, that's what his experience was. He didn't really have any money. His mother was getting hurt. So his number one immediate goal was to take care of that. And America presented that opportunity to pull himself out of poverty to give his mother a better life. Ironically, it didn't really turn out that way, but he's still stuck with that mentality. And we see it from the opening scene of you have to listen, you have to play it safe, because any other way he would be in danger. Already couldn't see his parents, and his grandmother right there is telling him, don't cry. I know my dad has definitely told me when I was a kid, don't cry. I don't know if that worked that well. I'm a pretty easy crier. So damn it, America, it really softened me. This is actually a really personal film for Alan Yang because this is him and his father's story. It's based on the feelings he experienced. Obviously, he's not a young woman, he's a dude, but I'm sure he experienced this. And that's the story he wants to tell of the disconnect, of just not being really able to open up to your parents. When I see this type of film, even though it's not perfect, I'm really encouraged. I imagine the conversations he had to have had with his father to get all this information, to get the intricacies of the banter. His father's life are the parts that feel most with emotion, and I'm sure he invested a lot of time to making sure those moments were honored. Ironically, it's the scenes where the daughter standing in for him is trying to connect with his dad, and even in this film, he's still unable to do it. Even in the end, which in a beautiful montage of shots, we see that the father's finally trying to open up. He's taking his daughter to all these places that we heard about. In those moments, we can finally see an attempt at a connection. To me, it seems like Alan Yang still doesn't really know how to articulate the relationship he has with his father, at least through this film. Maybe that was part of the intention. There's two scenes that really stand out to me that I feel like were missed opportunities. That's the scene in the daughter's house when he's talking about her just moving there and her being with her boyfriend. I wish they just had a little bit more talking about one thing but meaning another thing. Everything they said was exactly how they felt. And another moment was when the father finally reconnected with his long lost love. He asked her if she saw him. I remember there was a little pause and I wanted her to say no. I was ready to feel something, like if it had hurt her so much that she has to lie and say no, and then they could reveal, the truth behind what happened later. But in that moment, she just says, yes, it hurt too much to see you go. And he's like, yeah, I didn't understand what the point was. And I think that summed up my frustration with this movie, is that all of the dialogue, especially in the present, felt like they're just telling you exactly how they feel. I can guess how they feel. I want them to try to cover up how they feel and then us trying to discover it. I thought that'd be more fun. And also there's the problem of the actor that plays the father, his Mandarin is not very good. So hopefully most people won't have to deal with this issue. Me speaking Mandarin, growing up in a Mandarin speaking family, it did take me out of the movie that his accent wasn't very good. Those are my main problems. Overall, I thought this was really, really ambitious. I like this movie. I really did. I think my frustration comes from you want it to be this thing that, changes your life, but this is just his story. So I can't expect or put all of what I want it to be on it. I think for what he was trying to do, it was mostly successful. The daughter is really, really under fleshed out. If you're Taiwanese-American, I would definitely recommend it. I think there's a lot of things to really like about this movie. I think a good movie is very specific, as this is, but it also covers a lot of universal themes, which this also has. I think this is a very exciting time, and we should really support more movies like this. So go out, tell your stories, make movies, or at least watch them, because I think it really does help. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. One thing too, I wish we saw some more food. If you're gonna have a movie about Taiwanese people, you gotta show more food, I think, because that's like one of our greatest strengths.